There he is, Kevin Lyman, my man. What's up, buddy? How are you? The man himself, right now for everybody out there. What's going on? Welcome to the Gunz Show on Twitch, my friend. Kevin Lyman, what's up, buddy?
I am doing well. You know, we're getting ready for our charity golf tournament tomorrow.
Okay.
Putting it on for about a dozen years, and we had to postpone it from January, but tomorrow's the makeup date, and we're having a great time. Everyone's going to be able to get together and raise a nice chunk of money for Music Cares.
Oh, that's great. And obviously Music Cares, great, organization as well as project, and it's been able to help out many bands and people out there throughout the years. Also, it'd be fun to see some people, right? See some of the friends and homies, right?
I mean, it's been easing in, it's for people that have been around people their whole lives, then we didn't have anyone. And now you're kind of reintroducing yourselves and kind of getting back into, a little later, we're having neighbors over. We have new neighbors, and we've been trying to get together for over a year with them. So, it's just, and as we're seeing, everyone, there's some places are starting to have shows, and, it's kind of it's just going to take us a little while. You just got to kind of, everywhere's going to be a little different, and everyone's going to have their own level of comfort.
And that's what I wanted to bring you on for. We got a lot to talk about. Obviously, it's Kevin Lyman. We all know him, Vans Warped Tour, and we got Professor. I think some students are in the chat right now saying hello as well. So shout out to them as well.
Oh, wow.
But I felt like because of two things. You've got a brand new podcast that's been going great, and we'll promote that. It's called My Warped Life. All sorts of great memories and stories with the people that made Warped Tour the success that it was, and just it's something that we literally all grew up with. But also because of the reopenings, and we're hearing the festivals that are coming in August, September, and then Dave Matthews Band announced a tour starting in July, kind of like one of them sooner than later, and then all these other things. So do you have faith that things are going to go, are we good now?
I think things are going to go. Is it some of it going to be in fits and starts? I think we're going to have some issues. I think the biggest issue, Gunz, a lot of people haven't really talked about is how many people have moved on from the business, touring people, production people. I think we're already starting to see there's going to be a shortage of drivers out there that drove tour buses, who maybe went to work locally and working for Amazon, or set carpenters or stage builders that, start building homes and are starting to look at there's going to be a little bit of a vacuum. There's definitely going to be a vacuum. It's going to create a lot of opportunities for people who want to get into the business.
Okay.
But we're going to have to get them trained. It's not a business that, if you're going to do certain jobs, you can kind of jump in. But most jobs, you need a little training. And from what I'm hearing and talking to the companies is it's going to be a little hard to get ramped up again. It's not happening overnight. So, we're hearing the venues, everyone's going to try to tour at once. So, when you go in and book a venue for your listeners, you call the venue, and it's called putting a venue on hold. Right. And if you're the first hold, you're most likely going to get your show. And we would be like 3-4 holds, and then you would kind of go look for another day. Well, I'm hearing venues are 17 holds and 20 holds on the same venue. So I think it's going to take a second to get going. I think the smart managers and smart bands are starting to look at packaging better. So it could be really cool for the consumer, because maybe 2 or 3 bigger bands are going to work together to be able to actually put a tour together. And they're going to have to share some resources.
And that was kind of what I was kind of wondering about, because I do believe that the oversaturation, because everyone's been stuck home, these bands need to get back out there. The music industry, live event industry got decimated unlike anything else the past year. And you're right, a lot of our friends have moved on and, had to get other jobs outside of touring, like tour managers, tech, production, all those people, who knows if they're going to come back. Even bands have broken up, and who knows what's going to happen there. But I guess one of my questions is, do you see perhaps from a financial economic standpoint that now we're going to get 6 or 7 or 8 band bills just because they need to make it economically work out? Do you see that happening?
I think, it's hard to do a 6 or 8 band bill during the week in a venue, 1,000 seat or 2,000 seat or something like that. But I think, there's going to be some consolidation. And I feel for those bands who might not get a tour in the next year. How are they going to survive? I think we're going to probably see a lot of bands go on hiatus. Do they break up, or do they end up just going, look, we missed a year, we can't get back out on the road. We can't find enough places to play or routings. You know, if you're sitting on the sidelines right now, you may not be able to get on the road until 2022 or late 2022 at this point. You know, how long can people hold out, before they have to go on and find a way to make a living? But then, with that'll be opportunities. I just think it's gonna, I'm afraid so many people, Gunz, are thinking they're gonna make all their money back in 1 year. Like they lost money, we're gonna all try to make it back in 1 year. It's not going to happen. It economically can't happen for the majority of bands. Now, you could exclude, there's the Lady Gagas, there's the
rock stars,
top. But the hardworking band and the hardworking crews and everyone are going to realize that this doesn't get fixed overnight. And if we try to rush it and fix it overnight, it'll probably compound and cause more problems.
I guess the follow-up question is to speak here with Kevin Lyman. Of course, you can follow him. Also, My Warped Life. It's a brand new podcast that he's been doing. Patreon, etc. We'll get to that in just a minute. It is Gunz, the Gunz Show on Twitch. Let's go. Love Twitch. Shout out to everybody over there. I'm bringing the music element, Kevin Lyman, to Twitch, all right? Live interviews, live performances. This is what I've been able to do last couple of weeks, last couple of months. I think more people need to jump onto Twitch from a music standpoint. That's what the Gunz Show is all about. I appreciate you coming on. Two questions. What advice would you give venues? Because I feel like ticket prices might have to go up, or how can they staff it? What about like if it's only capacity limits? That's my first question. And then part B would be, what advice do you want to tell bands out there that about what may happen?
Well, I'd be careful how we're going to raise ticket prices. I mean, expenses are going up. I've been talking to the insurance brokers. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, you're not going to get insurance for a pandemic. It's just not going to happen. But, we've been talking about, liability insurance, weather insurance. If you're an outdoor tour or festival, those rates are going up. And I've always said, I was out on the road for 28 summers. And people can't tell me the weather hasn't changed. The storms get more ferocious during the summer. There are longer hot heat spells. So I think we're under challenges. So I think consolidating and finding good packaging, maybe bringing one road manager that's willing to handle 2 or 3 bands, sharing buses, sharing crews. I don't think we can move and just pass on the cost to the consumer, because economically it's been nice. We've had the stimulus for a lot of people. It's helped. It's not the end game, but we economically we see inflation going up. We see costs of everything going up. So I think it's going to really take smart. I was talking. I've been talking to some of my former people, and you may not bring one sound person to do those 3 bands. Bring a stage manager, bring some guitar techs that can work on all the bands. It's going to take a while, and there's going to be less available really good people to go on the road, because they're going to be in such high demand. So I think that's just going to be efficient, smarter touring people are willing to really sit down and work with their budgets, because I just don't think we can add $10 to the tickets,
Right.
For the long term. I think we just can't do that.
And also, if there's so many bands that all want to tour at the same time, like you said, it's not just gonna be Friday or Saturday night shows in major cities. Like, there's gonna be shows every single night, it seems. Like, everyone wants to try to jump back on.
But I always tell my students, a lot of them, they do these underground coffee shops and things like that. And I'm like, well, there's going to be a band that needs a place to play passing through your city. So if you could find a little location that maybe holds 100 people, and a band that would normally play a 300-person club can't find one, you might be able to create an opportunity for them to do that special show because they need a place, Yeah. So, it's not all doom and gloom, and I don't want to be, but there's realities and then there's opportunities. And I think we're in an era of business that there's some of both.
Right.
And there's going to be young entrepreneurs figuring it out, because they're not going to be driven ultimately right at the moment by having to make a lot of money. They just want to get in the game. So if you want to get in the game, there's going to be opportunities.
Yeah. Right. Maybe the financial backing of it might not be, extravagant, but hey, if you want to get in, you want to, do it, kind of like how Warped Tour started throughout all those years, the DIY aspect, and people putting up tents and stuff and being able to sell and kind of grow. That's definitely the right way for sure.
And I think those agents that might not give you a call or not care about, you're not big enough to talk to, you might, if you have a room that holds 100 people, you might now start getting those.
You might be their favorite person.
Yeah, you might become their favorite person.
As Michael Scott from The Office says, how the turntables turn, my friends. It's like how the turntables. Michael Scott, of course, from The Office. It's Gunz, Gunz. Drop me a follow, drop me a subscription if you like. It is Twitch right now. The Gunz Show has Twitch. It'll be available afterwards. Audio version on Spotify, iTunes, idobi Radio. We're speaking here with Kevin Lyman. Make sure to follow him on all of the social aspects in social media. I want to also, besides the live event and aspect, because we are, turning that corner. The lights at the end of the tunnel in New York City this past weekend was blowing up, very exciting. Things are opening. What was your take on live streams? I felt like it was interesting. The beginning of the pandemic, it seemed like everybody on my Instagram stories was doing acoustic performances, and everyone was doing it. Then they realized, a lot of bands, after 2 weeks, they all stopped because they realized it was a lot of work. And they were just, so everyone was doing it, then nobody was doing it. Now live streams have been going. Underoath did, kind of kicked it off, did a great one. The Main, all-time low, a lot of bands, and, obviously bigger bands as well, like Billie Eilish, a bunch of them have been doing it. What's your opinion on the live stream industry? Do you see that rolling?
I think going forward, there's more niches carved out right now. We took time, so now we're going to have touring, but we're going to have, live stream has a place in this business. Now, one, I think as artist development, there's going to be a place for artist development because a lot of those young bands might not be able to get out on the road and tour the way they did right away. But you know what? With the right live stream, early on in the pandemic, it was funny. I went to a lot of the labels, Gunz, that we know, and said, hey, maybe we work together and build a series where each night the labels would have a night to showcase one of their bigger acts, and we'll put 3 or 4 smaller acts, and there were some really cool rooms that we could have used. And I was like, we do this under a big umbrella, not the Warped umbrella, but just kind of, we could find a sponsor, work together on this thing. The bigger bands would make the money, they'd get paid the most, and the younger bands get the exposure. And it was really funny because, it was work. It would have been hard work, and really no one really wanted to put in the hard work at the beginning, I think, Later on, I got a few calls, but by then I was working on my golf game and my barbecuing and playing a lot of cornhole, so it wasn't that, but I think there's going to be places for artist development, and I also think streaming's here because bands are looking at those unique, really cool streams that you do. Maybe you carve out a night on the road. You've got a venue that you've kind of sold out. Might not be able to get everywhere you used to for a while. Right. So, if you have fans in Barcelona and you are only going to get there once in the next 3 years, what's wrong with developing a really, really special, cool show that's going to be live streamed during your tour or prior to your tour? Yeah. Or between your tours. Financially, streaming became profitable for quite a few bands. If they did something, they could make money. And I also think to help with the mental health of this industry, maybe if you could financially make a little bit of money, you might not have to be on the road quite so much. Maybe you'll be on the road 2 weeks less, but those 2 weeks at home help you ground yourself. Because we found that mental health deteriorated because I think one of the reasons was bands were on the road longer and longer and more and had to constantly stay on the road. So maybe, I think streaming's here to stay. Okay. I think it's going to carve out a niche. I think there's going to be jobs in streaming. It was funny, right? When this all started, everyone was streaming you had a Venmo account and, a Shopify, right. a Vimeo account and a Shopify of your streaming
here you
company.
go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Every day, you get someone's a new streaming company. But, we've settled into those Topeka Live and Mandolin and Veeps and these kind of companies are finding their niches and where they're going to be. And I think we're going to have a handful of these companies that aren't going anywhere. Yeah. We used to stream that first Warped show. I don't know if you remember, back in the day, I used to be like, yeah, this is awesome. Let's stream the first show and show people how much fun people are having. Right. And stimulated that for driving ticket sales later on. One person goes, God, you were early. And I go, yeah, sometimes we're a little ahead of ourselves on it, but it worked. But I think there's going to be streaming is going to be here, and I think it's going to be a very viable source. And anyone who's not looking at it probably is doing their band a disservice in the long run.
And it is interesting, and what's been great, I think, especially with the live streams, is kind of how individual artists or the management and people, how they would separate their streams from everybody else. Because you can do a live stream, but what else are you going to do to enhance it? And like, whether it's production, whether it's like Jimmy Eat World, kind of like they had the camera set up in the middle and like went to all the individual instruments and stuff. So it was kind of like a more kind of like you're right there feeling. So it's cool, you know?
It really developed. You think about March when this all went down. Like, and I did that mental health festival when we put it online. It was one of the first big events online when we had 90 speakers live and 60 performances from Chris Martin and Lindsey Sterling. And we did that like a month into the pandemic, month and a half, 2 months in. But think about like those late night TV shows, like Samantha Bee and Trevor Noah and these kind of things. I mean, we have better quality right now than they did when they first came out. But look how quickly it developed, and we had better production and better quality, and that's what the band started doing. They got over like this, you couldn't just play, maybe you did a bathroom session, maybe a bedroom session, and that kind of worked. But to bring those fans back, you started putting more production elements in.
Yeah.
VR now is kind of an interesting thing. Those surround cameras are around there, a little more intimate kind of things. I think, and we're also going to have a lot of people that are going to suffer some form of PTSD from this, that not everyone's going to rush back and go to shows. There's a group of people that'll run back and crowd into venues without thinking, but there's going to be 10 to 20% of the people that are love music that are probably going to want to digest it in a different way for some time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this will be one way to service that.
And even some mental health experts and more even say, for those that are feeling anxious and are a little hesitant, it's, you rather than go from 0 to 100, you want that slow easing back into things. You don't want to go from 0 to 30,000 people. Like, that might not be good. Maybe a slow ease in. That's what some of them say.
A lot of people, I think drive-in shows for a while are going to be here. So I know bands and people are setting up for the spring and summer drive-in shows. I know a lot of people who said they really enjoyed them.
Yeah, hang out. Yeah.
It wasn't for me, but you know what? That's not me. I'm different, but other people like. So who's to judge how people want to digest their music? And if I was getting in the business right now, I think there's gonna be more jobs than ever.
Right, and different aspects, and it's all about the creative aspect and what you can do with it. It's the Gunz here. Make sure to drop me a follow, the Gunz Show right now, and we're speaking here with Kevin Lyman, and kind of transitioning from what bands have stepped up and you kind of use their creative element to them is you yourself, man, because the Warped Tour every single summer, always added another element to it, and obviously has become, a staple of the music industry throughout so many people's lives. And you have this new podcast that people need to check out. Tell us about it. It's called My Warped Life. It's fun. I mean, it's a smile the whole time, man, because it's just remembering good times.
Well, let me tell you guys, you learn it's a lot of work. I mean, it is a lot of work. But it was kind of, my wife was kind of telling me like, hey, you should do a podcast. You should document some of these stories and things. And, sitting down and writing a book, I've written down a couple ideas for chapters and things, but it's hard, I'm hard to nail down as anyone who put my feet in. But we were around Christmas time. School was kind of winding down for the semester. I was driving her a little crazy, to be honest, We're all kind of,
Who, you, Kevin? No way. You, come on.
And it was like, all right, you're great. 2 days a week, you're out there teaching. Wouldn't it be kind of cool to do a podcast? And I had a few students that were graduating, that Xavier and was great, and Beata, and I said, hey, they have their own podcast. I said, hey, you want to be my engineers on my podcast? And then my buddy Tony, who's my co-host, is someone who I was able to play golf with during the pandemic. And we had this little group of people, including Brian Malouf, who was a producer on Madonna's album, just a huge producer. And he's never heard these stories and some of the stuff. So he was laughing and having a good time, always has a good time with it. So we said, let's do a podcast. And my old friend Vivian Wang, who works worked for me and works for AG now, and it's jumped in and said, I want to get involved. And we just started doing it. And why I called it was My Warped Life. I think a lot of people would think that it definitely ties a lot to the Warped Tour. But I think I've met so many people who have had their own warped lives. So threading in things, and one of the most recent episodes I did was with the Van Doren family, about the Van Doren family. And I feel very honored that I was able to interview Paul Van Doren, who just passed away about a week and a half ago. But I had his last interview, and I thought it was so important to have the legacy of the Vans family. And how that, and in upcoming episodes, I've got Bob Hurley, who touched my life in a lot of ways. So I'm doing a whole episode on him.
Sick, yeah.
30th anniversary of Less Than Jake coming up, because I don't know if a lot of people know I used to manage them, and me and Vinny had some good laughs about me getting fired and how I fired everyone. Just it's super fun. And then been working. We're going to do an episode on Ice-T. Everyone's got an Ice-T story. And,
of course, yeah.
I just got to lock down. Talk about a busy person. That guy.
Right, does it all. Literally does it all. Yeah.
But he touched so many people's lives, and so many people have touched my life over these over 40 years in the business, and continue to do that. So we like to feature, we highlight one of the nonprofits that we've worked with through the years. We try to promote other people who have books coming out. My old friend Tana Douglas, we promoted her book. She was the first woman roadie. So, there's lots of topics, and hang out in the house. I do the interviews like this, and then we film in the backyard. And this one of these episodes, we're starting live, add that live music element to it. And
nice, yeah.
One day, hopefully, we'll be filming, and I'll be barbecuing and hanging out, telling stories around the barbecue, and then we'll flip over to a band. You just have to keep moving forward. And I tell people all the time. I mean, and sadly, COVID, one thing it did, I lost a lot of people I know. I heard a dear friend, I just found out, and I hadn't seen, he was a guy who played music at the farmer's market that I go to. His name was King, and he played reggae, and everyone knows I like reggae, and I'd hang out with King, and I'd bring him to my parties at my house when we had our big holiday parties, and he would sit out front and just play music around a campfire, and everyone knew King. And I didn't realize a whole year went by, and I haven't gone to the farmer's market. It just wasn't going. And I got text yesterday that he passed away.
Oh man!
Or a person that when I was lucky enough to go to the Amazon a few years ago with Bob Becker from Fearless Records, the woman who worked on the boat in Manaus, and in the entryway to the Amazon, that whole town is getting wiped out, and we lost her. So. I always say the one thing you do is you run out of time in this world, but a lot of people, we don't run out of things we want to do, and I never had So this is the summer of routing. It was supposed to be last year, where we jumped in that Sprinter van we have and go see some of the sites that I always say we were in such a hurry to go from point A to B. We always had to get to a load in. We always had to get to there.
Yeah.
But there was a lot. Now it's time to check out the things in between.
Right, because you don't have,
the things that when either you were sitting up at the front of the tour bus or you've driven through them. Yeah, I managed to get lost in my Jeep out in the desert a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
I stopped and played golf at a golf course that I've driven by for over 30 years.
It's like, why not? Yeah, it's almost like the why not. Like, listen, life's too short. Why not experience these things that we might not have in the past? Like, why not? Yeah. It's like, why not do these now? Yeah. So I think I think a lot of people, I mean, it's, there's nothing can be said that, you have to find, and it's hard when you hear about a pandemic that there could be some positives that come out of this. And I'm really hoping, and a lot of people, there was talk about cooperation in the music business, and we're all going to work together. We're going to try to bring it back together and all this. I felt good about that for a while, till the last 3 weeks, and I'm watching everyone knock the crap out of each other all day long, like normal, Right. But you know what? I'm hoping a younger generation realizes that you can do good business and do good with your business. And that's why I'm at USC teaching. That's why I enjoy teaching so much right now. Right. Really, loving, great, and like the Zoom we're doing, but now I have like split screens and I have an extra screen, and I was able to have, I did a thing on like world business and had a friend from London zoom in and give a report, and a friend from Japan. Oh, that's sick, yeah. Also, how
you start producing a show.
Yeah. How about Kim Lyman knowing all about technology these days? How about that, right?
That's what's scary. I mean, yes, you learn how to. Guys out there, I actually learned how to use GarageBand recently and know how to put files together and know how to go into Google Drive and upload stuff. It's kind of, you can still learn new tricks.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it's called My Warped Life, and you said, like, obviously it's about Warped Tour, but also it's about everything that kind of went on, and also, you know, those helping out other people and just those that are also kind of doing their things in their own way and telling those stories about it. Real quick, just a couple questions, because we do have a lot of, you know, fans that grew up with the Warped Tour and love the Warped Tour. Even, you know, the Atlantic City one, the last one that you guys did was incredible. I had so much fun that weekend, man. That was awesome. But just from your standpoint, do you have I think it's always interesting because, you know, you guys had Katy Perry, you had a lot of these bands, like, you know, as they rose and became massive afterwards. But I want to get your take because, like, Ahmad's son or an MGK, Machine Gun Kelly, who was on Warped Tour, now they're on top of the world. MGK literally is bringing back that era for the younger generation now. Mod and MGK, like, there were times people would boo them and be like, what the hell are they doing on Warped Tour? And then, but what do you mean, what are they doing? They loved it, they had the passion for that music, and now they're massive, finally.
And that gives me a lot of hope, because I feel like there wasn't a lot of people supporting each other. Artists weren't supporting each other. To watch what MGK is doing, and then with that whole Black Bear and Mod's son and a lot of the young artists, and now Avril Lavigne's, like, I would try to get Avril to do Warped forever. Now she's an emo punk girl again. And, you know, it's like, you know, Halsey doing stuff with them. You know, it's great to see that. And maybe MGK brought that from growing up in hip hop, where you had a lot of collaborations and people working together. He's now brought it into this scene of music. And this is what this scene needed. We used to have that. The bands did, but I think they fractured. They didn't support each other as much as they used to. And to watch that, we were driving out somewhere, I don't know, in the van, and I was going through on Spotify and just playing all the collaborations in a row that they're all doing.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me feel good. It made me feel good and gave me hope that if they continue doing this, and I've heard, you know, some of the ticket counts that, you know, as MGK has done, some, they're huge.
Yeah.
And dude, that's awesome. You know, I do have to feel that in a small way, those parking lots maybe set in the back of his mind a little bit when he was starting to do this. I know he does his own festival and some of the stuff like that. And Mod's son was, you know, my favorite hippie. And then, you know, it's good to see, and I hope they keep it up, you know.
And they were all on that, you know, that one stage that one year. They were all kind of just on it. Like, I think Sammy Adams was on it that year as well. And you're right there. It's like that camaraderie, all helping each other, which is what a lot of the scene used to be. And now it's all kind of come to fruition right now, just on a massive level. Like Monzo just did.
Yeah, I mean, that stage had, like, you know, K-Flay and Wallpaper with Ricky Reed.
Jeez.
I mean, there was people going to that stage, and the talent that was on that stage, which was a little out there sometimes, and you never want to say, but I think Warped was very diverse when if you took a second to listen to the music, it was super diverse. But the people that came off of that one stage, that was kind of that eclectic mix of, I'd hear something and go, oh, I wanted that. Now, I don't know if anyone else, but I want to go out there and watch that band once in a while. Right. And I think there'll be enough other people, but the artists started figuring it all out together. Yeah. And just, it's really cool that they're all collaborating and working together and pulling each other up. And man, I just want, if anyone's just do that right now. You know, we need that. And it'll be great. If you go back to just talking crap about each other online and not supporting each other, then we're just as bad as, you know, we could just be bad. We need to come together. This country, I don't know if we can bring this country together, but we could bring some music fans together. and that's what it really takes, you know. Yeah. It starts with music, and I shout out to those guys that are doing that, and girls that are all doing that, the guys and girls that are all doing that and collaborating, and, you know.
And Warped Tour is a major part of that, you know what I mean? Warped Tour brought, you know, like you look at like a band like Bad Rabbits, which is, there was any justification in the world, Bad Rabbits should have been the biggest band ever because they were so talented. But you were able to bring them on, just all, you know, then Pierce the Veil, Bring Horizon, all the genres you were able to do throughout the years.
And it was great. We did a thing when we were talking about some of the after parties on Warped Tour on the podcast, and it was like pretty much voted Bad Rabbits was the best party ever.
Yes.
The night that they were playing, you know, that they were doing Rage Against the Machine to old funk songs, and
so good.
And Abby McCoy was DJing, and just everyone was having a great time. Yeah. It's a good time. It'll be a good time if everyone just take a step back and pull everyone up with you. Yeah. Bring it together.
It's Kevin Lyman, of course. My Warped Life is the podcast. Patreon as well. Support him because he's helped us throughout the years and has done a tremendous job and really has helped us every single summer. It was, you knew you were going to the Vans Warped Tour. Final question I want to ask you. I just watched 60 Minutes. I told my audience this when I started. I just watched 60 Minutes. They had I was doing show prep I was watching, but they had a special about UFOs. And like, they call them the UFAs now, like, or something. It's not like UFOs, it's a different thing. Anyway, they're saying that they don't know what's happening, but it's a lot out there. The government's supposed to release something in a couple weeks. But it reminded me of Tom DeLong because Tom was right the whole time. He was always right. Now, you've known Tom forever. Tell us a Blink story like back in the day with Tom and stuff, or like.
Oh yeah, and I do. It'd be like Tom would walk out and everyone would go, "Oh God," it's like, "Oh man, Tom the spaceman." It's like I'd hear that quite, and I have to be honest, it'd be like, "Oh man, Tom's out." But you know what? He's going to get the last laugh, it sounds like, And a quick story, I got an invite to go to JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab is nearby here. And I go on this tour, and we go to their big giant control room, and they had this wall of like distinguished guests, like slides. And who popped up? Tom DeLong, so he's going to get the last laugh on all of us. So anyone who talked crap about Tom DeLong being, out there.
Aliens exist. Yeah.
Guess what? I mean,
that's vindicated.
All on top of us. So,
that's funny. Yeah. But you guys, you knew them in the beginning, right? Like, weren't they on your bus or something? Didn't they ride with you in the beginning? Just like tell a story real quick for the audience out there that might not know the early Blink stuff. We'll end on that though with you.
Well, Blink, I mean, they rode on my bus and they couldn't really afford the transportation around and they rode on my bus. And we had this kid that would somehow we let it on the road. He was like an early tech kid. He actually knew how to connect to the internet and stuff. And his name was Allegro. And if you're out there, Allegro, I hope everything worked out for you. But it was the wildest fun summer, just traveling around on a bus with them. Anyone who thinks that was just a show, that when they go on stage, they were that funny. No, they were that funny. They were that funny. It was just a really good time. They traveled on the bus. They came back. But really, it goes, and we're going to talk about this, but how one time we had a band named Sugar Ray who was coming out on Warped Tour.
Okay. Oh, Sugar Ray, yeah.
Sugar Ray comes out. They were in a band called the Shrinky Dinks before. Yeah. And they put out the song, and one song comes out that summer called Fly. And they were selling 70,000 records a week at that point. They were playing on a 1-foot stage on Warped Tour. 1-foot stage. And I'm getting yelled at by the label. I'm getting yelled at by everything that, you need to bring them to the biggest stage. You need a bit of the biggest stage. And I'm like, no, you got booked on that stage. It's not fair. And I think back, the smallest band on the big stage at that point was Blink-182. Now, if I had fallen for the pressure and moved them, do you think they would have come back in '99 when Dude Ranch was kicking? It was just like their albums were just massive and it was right before Dude Ranch when I would have moved them, and you think they would have come back? I mean, it was just sticking to your guns like you would guns, like you do. Just stick to my guns there. Yeah. So, always great. And then having them come back and play that Atlantic City show was super fun. And
full circle. Full circle.
And I never thought like driving out of that parking lot in San Francisco, it was really weird. It was like, I looked at my wife, I go, cool, I did everything I possibly could with that project. Now it's time to do other things. Mm-hmm. And then the pandemic hit a year later. I'm just thinking, that's why I try to help everyone right now. I'm willing to, help students. I help my friends in business. I help that because, man, it would have wiped me out if I was going out in 2020. You don't realize how, as an independent business person, that could have, so I look back and count and say, very thankful for getting to do what I did for so long, and still now I'm going to do some other things, but no rush. Nothing's a rush right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's good. And you've worked it. You've earned it because, you did every summer, even beyond just the summer, because of all the other projects that you had been part of in tours. Kevin Lyman, we could talk to you forever. But if you want to learn more, check out the podcast. It's called My Warped Life. Support the Patreon. He's got very cool things that have already aired, as well as those that will be coming out. He's expanding. He's adapting. That's what Kevin Lyman does. This has been fun, man. Great conversation about what concerts will look like when they return. I am bummed out that you did not officially announce at all that Warped Tour will come back, because I feel like we need Warped Tour more than ever in my life right now, Kevin. But
if the scene came together the way it is now, it might be hard to stay on the sidelines. But I'm really looking forward to the golf tournament tomorrow. Yes. keep putting out good podcasts. The golf tournament, that's where I'm going to surprise him, Gunz, because I did get a lot of time to practice golf over the last year.
Okay.
I had that knee, had my updated knee replacement third time, and now I'm going to go out there.
You're ready to go. You're ready to roll.
I'm ready to go tomorrow. So it's always great to see you, and thank you for having me on.
Kevin Lyman, definitely follow him on all the socials. We'll be in touch, and fingers crossed everything, see that light at the end of the tunnel. It will be there, but we all just have to kind of take it in stride and just get excited because things are going to be better this year than they were last year, and we can all agree on that. It will be better, and it will only continue to get better. Kevin Lyman, My Warped Life, thanks for joining the show, man. Always a pleasure, and you're the man, dude. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gunz. Take care.
See ya.